Money, they say, makes the world go round. And with technology, you have the world at your fingertips like magic. You know what I'm saying? Poof, just like magic. Because technology advancement is actually affecting virtually every aspect of the world economy, from education to communication, security, businesses, space, just name it. Name one aspect of human existence that technology doesn't have a hand in. Welcome to your program, Money and Technology, reaching you from our channel here, CBA TV, the voice of East Africa and beyond, here in Hargeisa, the capital city of Somaliland. My name is Aljara Ahmed Tijani. I am not going to do this alone. Of course, I have with me in the studio, we're going to be rocking it together. This person I'm talking about is technology savvy, and in the world of technology, he is one of a kind. I'm talking about Prince Hamzeh Mohammed. How are you doing?
I'm good.
Yeah. It's great to have you. All right. Now let's get to the business of the day. I am a graphics designer, and I take it beyond just ordinary graphics. I do a little bit of motion graphics, and sometimes I do 3D animation. Now, there's this particular, program that I've been using for quite some times, and my computer is Core i7, just Core i7. And each time I want to render a very, very thick graphics work on it, especially on 3D animation, the application just closes abruptly. It will just shut down. And I did a little bit of research just to know why that is, and I saw something like gaming system. Now, when we mention gaming system, what are we talking about? Is it a system for just for you to play games? I mean, what is it that is called gaming system?
So basically, a gaming system is a complete with parts and many things that makes a computer more powerful. So you would have graphics cards. As you said, you're a graphics designer. Has graphics cards, processors. It's basically a desktop. So the term gaming PC comes from the market that it comes from. So a lot of consumers buy these PCs just for gaming. So they put that under the label gaming PCs, but it's not usually used for gaming a lot of the time. You could use your graphics designing on that kind of PC. So the problem that you're having is once you open your project, it crashes, am I right?
Yeah.
So what happens is the thing that you're trying to run is called graphics designing.
Exactly.
So in terms, you need to use a graphics card, a more powerful graphics card. So you can have an i9 processor, any good processor, but as long as you don't have a good graphics card, then you won't be able to do any graphics designing or anything like that. So your graphics card was not performing up to par with the processor, so that's why it shut down. So,
all right, before we begin to ask a question of what makes a gaming system, what are the composition? Let's just ask ourselves this question: who is this, machine meant for? Is it just for the people that are doing gaming out there, or who is it meant for?
In terms, a computer is meant for everyone. So it's basically used for any field that you want to use. So it could be gaming, it could be business, it could be conferencing, it could be all types of stuff. Okay. So a lot of people say gaming PCs because it's targeted towards people who play games. but they do have other PCs known for streaming PCs,
Okay.
designing PCs, architectural PCs, PCs that are more powerful so you could run your tasks with ease. So yeah, that's what it was basically about.
Okay, you said something about streaming PC and then gaming. When we talk about gaming, you know, what is the target of the gaming that we're talking about? What are the things embedded in games before a system is built, you know, towards that level of gaming that we're talking about? What are the things? What kinds of games that have that much of graphics in it that really necessitated the company to begin to think of, you know, building a system towards that task?
So over the years, games have evolved from 2D to 3D, and now from the 2000s, I'd say, onwards.
When I was young, you know, there's this game I'm very used to. I think the name is Mario or something. Dun, 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 dun. Of course, you met it.
I've played it. Everyone has played it.
Okay, you were saying something about the involvement of games.
Okay, so above the 2000s, the year of 2000s, games have become more graphics focused. And as you said, you're a graphics designer, once more. Games have more design on them. They've put more 3D textures, more models on them to make them more aesthetically pleasing to the eyes and to make it more realistic.
Okay.
So running those things is not easy. So you need to have more power in your PC or your gaming or your hardware. So that's why in due time, more products come out that you can access and you can use for your games and stuff.
Now, let me take you on your words. More powers into the PC. When we're talking about more powers, are you talking in terms of the power that gets into the PC, you know, maybe DC? I mean, I don't understand what you're saying, you know, by the word power. Or does it mean that the size of that system has to be gigantic, you know, very big? I mean, what is it specifically that you are talking about when you mention power? Or should I say, or put it in another way, what are the compositions of gaming system?
Okay, so the components are mainly CPUs, processors, graphics cards, RAM, hard drives, SSDs, power supplies. Because if you don't have a power supply, you cannot.
No,
run any
most
of these
definitely.
things, yeah.
Most definitely.
So there is a lot of things that go into a desktop or a PC, and you don't need the most greatest parts or the most strongest parts. You can have the most basic parts and still function as a computer. But there are going to be times where it's going to push the limit of your PC and it might shut down. So what I meant by power is the driving force of that PC.
Okay.
And
like what and what?
Like the strength. Like you have the graphics card. The graphics card is the strength of the computer.
Okay.
And the CPU is the brains of the computer. So if you put the brains and the bronze together, then you've got yourself a masterpiece. So there are many things that come together as one for the PC. So you can't just have something that's very strong, like the graphics card, and have something that's very weak, like a weak processor. So you need to have something that's well balanced, so you could have a proper PC that you can have.
Now, let's go to the details, or to be specifics now. When we mention processor, I get to hear a lot, you know, quite a number of PCs that you get to see out there are either Intel produced or Intel brand, you understand? And then at a point you get to hear Intel processor and then Intel graphics. What's the difference between these? How many processors, how many brands of processors do we have out there before we begin to talk about graphics?
Okay, the two main competitors out there for CPU or processor-based companies are Intel and AMD. So Intel has been producing and making their the CPUs since I'd say early 70s
Okay.
or early 80s, I'd say. And AMD has also produced it during that time, so they've been competitors. But AMD has been destroying the market since the 1970s up to the 2000s.
How do you mean destroying the market?
They were the only ones who were producing
Oh, okay, okay.
powerful.
Dominating the
Yes,
market.
yes.
Okay. Okay.
So no one really heard about AMD
Oh, yeah.
technologies. So it was, AMD stands for Advanced Micro Devices.
Okay.
So AMD was unheard of. They were the underdog of the competition, as you know what I'm saying.
Okay.
So
Okay.
they started getting recognition during the 2016, 2010, this decade.
Okay.
They started to make a name for themselves because they were producing much better CPUs than Intel, because they offered something that Intel did not. They offered the chance to overclock, to manually increase the speed of your CPU.
Overclock.
Yes, overclocking.
Overclocking.
So overclocking is something where you get the CPU for a fixed price, and there is a speed that that CPU runs at. So let's say you have what processor? You have an i7.
I know I use, well, currently now, because of the need for me to get a graphics embedded system, now I'm using Core i5, with some graphics card,
So that processor runs at a specific speed.
Okay.
So I'm guessing if your i5 is the base product, it should run at maybe 2 gigahertz or something like that. So just imagine that you've bought your CPU at a standard 2 gigahertz. That's how it should run. AMD gives you that option to increase that speed by putting a little bit more energy and more power into that CPU, so you could get more speed out of it.
All right, so I'm sure there's much that we need to talk about when we're talking about gaming system and what is it used for. This is Money and Technology, reaching you from our studio here, CBA TV, here in Hargeisa, the capital city of Somaliland. We'll go for a break. We'll be back again. Stay with us. Before we went for that break, we were talking about overclocking in a system, and I still have my co-presenter here, Prince Hamza Mohammed. All right, when we're talking about overclocking, is this the same thing as threading?
No.
When we're talking about core and thread.
So overclocking would increase the performance on both cores and threads.
Okay.
So you could run more things. So more cores and more threads, more output being put into it means that you can efficiently do more work. So there's different cores and different threads. So as in Intel processors, you've got the i3, the i5, the i7, and the all new i9 that came out. So the latest one, the i9, has 8 cores and 16 threads. That's a lot of cores and threads.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's super.
Yeah. All those cores and all those threads working together, so you can multitask different tasks. So you could have, imagine you can have graphics designing. You're rendering one thing, and you've got games running here, and you've got things running here. Then that's a lot of things to do. So overclocking allows you to do that stuff, but with a budget and a small, inexpensive CPU.
Okay.
So yeah, so if you have like an AMD Ryzen 5 with I think 4 cores and 8 threads, you can boost that speed by just overclocking and putting more power into it. So
sorry, briefly, in the system ecosystem, when we're talking about computer now, what is the place of Pentium? Pentium, is it a specific brand? You get to hear Pentium 3, Pentium 4. Is it the same as Core, core system?
So Pentium was developed by Intel, but it's not part of the Core series. When it introduced the Core series, I think it was before the Core series that they introduced Pentium. So Pentium was the innovation of Intel. So they built their name on Pentium moving on to Core. So Pentium was a processor which was quite handy back in those days when you could have word processing and all those little things and business stuff you could do with it. So Pentium was an early version of Intel's before they moved on to the Core series.
All right, let's move forward. Now, how many graphics cards do we have out there?
We have a lot.
A
lot of
lot.
graphics cards. We
Okay,
have.
can you mention like 3 or 4 on this program?
Okay, so there are 3 competitors, but we have NVIDIA, we have Intel, and we have AMD.
Okay.
So NVIDIA is the leading graphics card manufacturer because they produce bangers after bangers. Each year they produce things that are better than the last year.
Okay.
We also have Intel HD graphics.
Oh.
I think mostly everybody has this graphics card.
Okay.
Basically, when you buy a computer which has Windows in it and Intel, it has inbuilt HD embedded graphics card.
Okay.
And embedded graphics card are not nice. So we have NVIDIA cards, the highest in the market, with the latest being the 2080 Ti.
Okay.
Next month, next month.
I think I've heard of GeForce. You know, you get to hear GeForce.
GeForce.
Maybe GTX or something like that.
So
what's
the
comparison?
The GeForce GTX was the last generation, 1 generation ago graphics card. Right now we are currently in the RTX generation, and next month they're going to be releasing their new graphics card, the 3080, the 3000 series. So people are looking forward to that. I personally have a GeForce GTX 1660. Which it's performing well for a budget GPU. Goes around $180. So that's what I have.
All right, people. So much of talking about what we're discussing. Let's quickly go out there to check out what we're talking about. We'll be right back.
For gamers, streamers, and content creators, a graphics card is one of the most important parts of your PC. The graphics card, also called a GPU, is responsible for generating the information and images that you see on your computer's display. The more powerful the GPU, the faster that information can be displayed, and the better your visual experience will be overall. As with every PC component, the first question to ask yourself when choosing a graphics card is, how will you be using it? If you're building a PC to play games, then the GPU will be your most important purchase. Other components can affect performance, like CPU and RAM, but getting a GPU that's too weak for your chosen games is guaranteed to result in disappointment. Some games won't even run. There are different kinds of games though, and not all of them demand the most powerful GPU on the market. That's why it's important to read a game's required, recommended, and optimal specifications to make sure that you get a suitable GPU. Buying the best GPU you can afford is a good way to future-proof your build and can keep it ready to play popular games that have yet to be released. If you're not a PC gamer, there are still many reasons you might need a powerful graphics card. Some examples include video editing and computer-aided design and manufacturing applications like AutoCAD, which can use the GPU for significantly better performance. In fact, there's a whole class of GPUs aimed specifically at these professional users. These workstation GPUs are optimized for these applications, and their drivers are certified to be stable and reliable. They're not always the best at powering games because they're designed with those workstation applications in mind. We're going to focus on gaming graphics cards in this video. When you're shopping for a GPU, you'll be choosing between 2 manufacturers, NVIDIA and AMD. Historically, these 2 companies have battled for leadership in the GPU market, and NVIDIA was strongly in the lead until the last few years. NVIDIA still holds a strong position in the market, but AMD's newest graphics cards have made the landscape more competitive.
All right, so what's the latest and which one do you think is good in terms of pricing? Because, you know, on this platform, we talk about money and technology. Which one do you think is affordable in the market? And I mean, as a graphics designer, a game streamer, you know, or whatever you do with your system, which one do you think is good and you're going to have value for your money in the market?
There's different things you could do. So for somebody who's looking for casual gaming or small things like that, I suggest you go for at least 2 generations old, like 1060, 1070, maybe 1050. They usually go for $150, maybe $100 to $200 they go for. But for something that is more demanding, like graphics designing and streaming, I suggest you up the budget, seeing as you're doing something important, and maybe get a 1080.
Okay.
A 1080 or a 1080 Ti is one of the best graphics card out there. It goes for around $500, and it can hold you for a very long time. So I suggest somebody who's trying to save money go for something that's lower and not for the 1080 Ti. So if you're on a budget and you can't spend that much money, I suggest the lower graphics cards, the lower end graphics cards. So yeah, that's what I'm saying.
All right. I would like you to also talk about one of the things that make a gaming system. You know, when we talk about RAM, what's the significance of RAM in the build-up of gaming system? I mean, what does it matter?
So RAM stands for Random Access Memory.
Okay.
So if you have RAM while your computer's on, your computer is getting files and all that stuff and saving and all that stuff. So if you have RAM, you can do a lot of processors. It works well with the processor. So if you have 4 GB RAM, then I think it's okay. It's the 4 GB RAM's the standard.
Okay.
But if you're getting something with more power, more demand, so I suggest you get like an 8 or a 16 GB. 8 GB is max. I have an 8. Personally, I have an 8 GB.
Have you seen a system with 32, gig RAM or even more than that before? Does it exist in the market?
Yes, it exists. I've seen somebody with 126.
Are you kidding me?
GB RAM.
Are you kidding me?
No. They're the type of people who would put monstrous parts into the PC.
Okay.
Let's say an i9 that costs around $900 for a CPU. 900. They would put an i9. They would put the 2080 Ti, which also costs 500, into one PC to create a devastating device. So they would like to do that so they could benchmark. And benchmark means to test the capabilities of that specific computer. So they do that, and they put all those parts together and test it to see how well it runs and how much electricity output it does. Yeah.
Now, briefly, I don't know what advice do you have for people that, if they're using laptop, doesn't exist in the world of technology? If I'm sure most of these laptops are built with their graphics, even if it is going to be Radeon, AMD, or NVIDIA, as the case may be, is it possible for a laptop to use external graphics card?
Yeah, it's very likely for a computer to do that. You can have a normal computer, but you have to buy an external GPU and connect it. Most people who are computer technicians know how to do this more easily because they just take the GPU and connect wires and they manually connect it inside the computer. So they have to open the computer, and that's much cheaper. But if you're not a computer,
I like everything to look neat and very tidy. I don't want any technician anywhere to just come and open my system and be doing all those wiring. I don't like it. So what do you advise?
There is an external GPU that comes with the box that is shipped from manufacturers.
Okay.
They will give you the box plus the GPU cooling inside, but that usually goes for around $200, $300 for that.
So it's not expensive.
It's not that expensive. There's ones that are $500.
Oh.
But I'd suggest you get the $200 to $300 one. Yeah.
All right. Let's go into one of the components of the system, of a gaming system. What is the in terms of storage this time around, what is the difference? What is HDD and what is SSD? How are they important to the build-up of gaming system?
Okay, so there's two main, I'd say there's three main storages of, you've got HDD,
Okay.
you've got SSD, and you've got hybrid of the both,
Oh.
SSHD.
Okay.
So the HDD is a hard disk drive. It's a big disk with, it's a disk
Okay.
in a metal casing with an arm which has data etched on it. So
Okay.
you save a file.
Sometimes it spins.
Yeah, it will
Okay.
spin at high revolutions. Let's say 5,400 times in a minute.
Wow.
It will spin. That's the high end. There's different types of hard drives. So you save, you drag files, you copy files. It would write onto that hard drive. So that usually takes time. And if you are turning on your PC for the first time and you're waiting for that Windows logo to come on, that is getting booted from the hard drive.
Okay.
So people, they made something which is a bit more faster than the hard drive, which is the SSD, a
Okay,
solid
okay.
state drive, which would increase that, they would decrease that time. So let's say originally when you turn on your Windows device, it will take approximately 1 to 2 minutes for it to turn on to get to the home screen.
Everything.
It will, yes, it
Cool, just-
takes time.
Okay.
But an SSD will do it to 3 times, 4 times faster.
Wow.
So you would turn
Wow.
it on, you would see it quickly going by, and
That's where the world is going now. Oh,
Yeah.
that's where the world is
Yeah,
already.
yeah.
Not where we're going actually.
so the difference between those two are the read and write speed. It would read faster and write faster because it does not have a disk.
Okay.
It is embedded, it's a chip. So people opt to get the SSD because of the fast transfer speeds and the download speeds and everything like that. So there's also an SSHD that I was
Okay.
recently aware of. I never knew that there was a hybrid of both of them.
Wow.
So the SSHD is a solid state hard disk drive.
Okay.
So it took the components of the embedded chip from the SSD and it took the disk from the HDD and they made a monster of a thing which can output, and it's kind of a bit more skinnier than
Okay.
the HDD. So
Okay. It stays in between
It stays between the HDD, yeah.
HDD and then
SSD,
SSD.
yeah.
All right. Those space. I'm talking about the volume of these things we're talking about, either HDD, SSHD, or SSD. Does it really matter in gaming system?
the space of,
I'm talking about like how many, what's the volume that you can advise? Is it just 250? Is it 500? Is it 1 terabyte?
to be honest, it's basically it's personal preference. If you think that you're going to be putting a lot of high volume files and games and programs onto your computer, I suggest you get a 1 terabyte
Okay.
hard disk drive, a HDD, because they go very cheap. They go around $50 because there's different types of hard disk drives. You've got some that have maybe 3,400 revolutions per minute, so it's a bit slower, and then you've got the 5,400 one that spin faster.
Okay.
So you could have you can get any of them. There's no, so I suggest that you get a 1 terabyte HDD, and if you want to increase that speed, you get a 250 GB SSD. So if you want, that's personal preference. That's for me, I have those two. The SSD is not a necessity. It's just for people who just want to have work done.
That
like,
speed,
that
too much of turbo speed and
yeah.
stuff like that.
I haven't seen anybody with a SSHD before. I don't know how much they go for. but-
I'm going to show you. I think I have a copy, somewhere.
An
SSHD. Yeah, I'll show you. That will be after the program. All right. I think our time is, fast spent, and we don't have too much of time again. We might continue on the same topic in our subsequent edition of the program, money and technology. All right. There's so much to say, but there is a takeoff in every bit of every discussion that we've talked about today on the program. Until next time, we'll come your way. Same station, same program. Stay on the verge of technology, because technology actually brings the world just in your palm. That's the magic. My name remains Ajara Ahmed Tijani, and
Prince Hamza Mohammed.
together we're saying bye-bye.